And I'm Sarah Ann Saran Fox.
And this is
Dan and Saran Take on Hollywood.
Today we have a very controversial topic. Not controversial like last week when we were talking about Hollywood scandals, but rather one that, in terms of academia, is looked down on, and that is the world of unscripted television. Now, unscripted covers a whole variety of things. It covers what we now call reality TV. It covers game shows. It covers documentaries. It covers news magazines, etc., etc.
I think that reality shows, when they started, were called unscripted, but now we know that behind the scenes they are scripted.
There's an actual reason why reality shows are not called game shows.
Mm-hmm.
And that is that way back in the past, in the late 50s and early 60s, there was a scandal involving game shows. In fact, there was a movie made about it called Quiz Show.
Mm-hmm.
And the scandal was that the show 21 was prompting one of their contestants, who was very popular with audiences, with answers.
Charles Van Doren, professor at Columbia.
Absolutely. Very good on you. I couldn't remember his name. And because of that, game shows are regulated to where you cannot assign a prize to a specific contestant. It has to be completely random. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't jimmy the game in one way or another in order to make sure you have X number of wins a week.
Well, what they were doing was the producers were feeding him the answers to the questions. It's because they wanted him to win. They wanted him to stay on because of the ratings and the publicity. I've been on a number of game shows, and I will tell you that you could not go to the bathroom unaccompanied. You were not allowed to talk to anyone in the audience. It was very strictly regulated. We were chaperoned very, very closely.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Because there were hearings in Congress about this, so it's almost like a federal law or something. Well, the FCC has rules about this, and they're very, very strict.
The trick on most reality shows is if you look at the end credit bug, it will say somewhere on it that producers reserve the right to make suggestions, and that pretty much means that the producer has the right to tell you who's going to win, or what you as a contestant are going to say.
On game shows?
On reality shows.
On reality shows. And we're talking about things like my favorite, which is The Real Housewives of Orange County, the original Real Housewives. Blondes, boobs, and bling. And it's the only one that I watch, and I look forward to its return every year.
Well, you know what? These things do become addictive because just like our neighbors, it's listening over the fence and exchanging gossip in the neighborhood. And with something like Real Housewives of Beverly Hills or Orange County, you're dealing with people who are rich. And there's nothing more satisfying than seeing rich people in the throes of absolute misery. Suffering in Mink goes over big.
Now, I'm sure that one of our guests will straighten us out on this, but one of the things that I have heard is that the producers will come up with a scenario, tell it to the stars of the shows, and then leave them to kind of wing it, but knowing what the outcome is supposed to be. Like in this situation, you two are going to have a fight over a man, or you're going to be offended by something this one said at a party and take it from there. And in that way, it is scripted.
It's suggested.
Suggested.
And I work on a reality show too, so we will all have a fun time talking about ways that reality is not necessarily quite so real. So let's talk to our guests and have them introduce themselves. First of all, let's meet Armin Fethulagian.
Hi, everybody. How's it going?
Armin actually is a product of not only the community college, but Cal State Northridge, where he has a degree in media theory and criticism, which is pretty much the equivalent of what my major was, which was history crit back in the day. And we also have Michael Gonzalez.
Hello.
And Michael is not of the entertainment industry in terms of his college.
Strictly speaking, no.
So what was your major?
It was biochem.
And what got you into the world of reality television?
In 2 words, Dan Watanabe. I was corrupted into leaving that behind and going into entertainment.
Well, we all know that all roads lead to Dan Watanabe.
Yes.
Yes.
Is the nexus of the universe. Absolutely.
Yeah. So Armin, what got you into the world of unscripted programming?
Dan Watanabe. See, I needed a job, and he set me up with a meet and greet with Sam Joda, who works for ITV Studios. And from that meet and greet, he was like, "Yeah, send me your resume. I'll see if there's anything available." I wasn't looking for a job, but I was looking for a job, but it wasn't to get a job when I met with him. And then 2 hours later, I got a call from Hell's Kitchen. "Hey, can you work this Saturday?" I was like, "Sure."
And tell everybody what Hell's Kitchen is.
Hell's Kitchen is a reality program that airs on Fox. I worked on season 15 and 16. It's hosted by Gordon Ramsay, and it's a cooking competition show.
Mhm.
It's two teams going against each other, and everyone's eliminated until you have the final greatest chef in the world chosen.
So what are some of, without breaking confidentiality, what are some of the things that might happen on a show like that that might be interesting for viewers to keep an eye out for in future episodes?
What do you mean in terms of?
Well, let me ask a question that's probably in everybody's mind. Is this show, for a show like this, is it fixed or is it a real competition?
It's real in terms of the way the cast interacts with each other and the stuff they say. No one ever says, "You need to say this, you need to do that." They're coached into doing it. A lot of the times, like, they'll take them into interviews and it'll be, "Oh, you guys were just talking about this thing. How do you feel about it?" "Oh, I feel fine." "Oh, but you didn't feel annoyed that she didn't back you up?"
Well, I see. Well,
"Oh,
and-
I thought she did back me up." "Oh no,
So-
I guess maybe she didn't." And then you hope something will happen from there.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe the correct term is produced.
Produced, yes.
They're not.
Absolutely.
The suggestions they're from the producer. They're producing.
Well,
Producing the
my
television,
question
yes.
is the results, the cooking results, the right. In other words, those aren't fixed.
No.
Okay. Yes.
So what is something that you learned from the show that you did not know about cooking?
It's hard being a chef. I never realized how intense it is. Just seeing the pressure and the amount of time that you have to do something and how hot the damn kitchen can be.
Hmm.
It's I never realized chefs had it's a tough job. Anyone who can be a chef and they make very little money doing it, good for them.
Mm-hmm.
So Michael, what are some of the shows that you've worked on?
I've actually worked on one with my wonderful, conspirator here, called Dance Moms. That I was on. What season was that? That would be.
We're on season 6.
Season 6. That I worked with Armin here next to me. That was actually the first job that I had in reality, and then from there, that actually got me my next gig. Someone kind of made a grandfather or a godfather call for me, and I worked on Celebrity Apprentice very recently on season 8, I believe, or no, season 8. Yeah, season 8.
Okay. It
Sure.
involves- yeah.
Dance Moms is basically mothers. In a similar way where you have like your beauty pageant transposed to dance competitions. So they'll take their 10-year-old, like 10.
They range in age from about 10 years old to
Yes.
everything they can to a larger.
He's preparing for a quite the person.
Yes. Yes.
Abby
she
is
does.
a Abby's Abby. There's no
Abby,
denying that.
yeah.
Is-
Abby is
without, as we say, betraying confidentiality. Is that who she is off camera too?
Absolutely.
So she's like very authentic.
She is very.
And
authentic.
so she's quick to anger, very demanding.
I actually respect her for that because she's exactly who she says she is. There's no
Yeah.
hiding it. There's
That's
no
true.
I'm gonna look for the cameras or whatever.
There's
She is
nothing
who she
produced
is.
about her.
You know something?
She's-
I have never seen the show, but I do know she has a reputation. Kids or at the moms?
Uh,
I think she's an equal.
Opportunity
Equal
of
opportunity.
yeller.
when it
Yeah.
comes to the kids, she's not yelling to be mean or she's not mad at them. It's more of a straighten your legs and point your feet. It's sort of she's very intense when it comes to her notes. When it comes with the moms, it's shut up and let me teach your kids. Like, is that sort of a thing?
So the personality clashes are with the moms. Yeah.
Adults. of
You know
course.
what? I've got to tell you now. This is just me coming at it as an alta cocker,
Mm.
but I'm looking at it going, those moms probably deserve it because because they're probably, I get the impression that, like in the movie Gypsy,
Mm.
that these can be moms who are living vicariously through their
Right.
kids. Now, do the kids love it? Are the kids really in love with dancing? Because in that case, then it's not a problem.
The kids do love dancing.
Okay, so it's not as if the kids are like, I really want to be a mathematician and you're making me dance.
I mean, our biggest star on the show is Maddie,
Mhm.
and she's really great. She loves dance. She's done a few Sia videos, and she's I think she did a role in Pretty Little Liars, and she's expanding her stuff. But all of the girls absolutely love dancing. They love everything about it. They're there all the time. Even after we stop shooting, they're there for classes, doing hip hop classes or ballet or whatever.
Do you ever see the effect on the young kids from all the drama? Because there is a lot of drama with her
Yeah.
personality, and she does clash with
That's
the
a good
mothers.
question. I never saw them exposed to that kind of like. I don't
It's
think so.
Well,
Right?
what is the exact nature of the drama on that show with her personality?
well, okay. So, season 6 is airing, so I can elaborate on some stuff. But it's a lot of it is the girls are getting older. At what point do they kind of branch out on their own? So that plays a big part in it, and a lot of it also is, okay, this one girl is no longer going to be with us, possibly. Who's going to be the next superstar of the group? So that causes a lot of conflict, and all of this stuff is stuff that's aired. So I haven't said anything wrong, Scott.
Okay.
If you're listening, I haven't said anything wrong.
Okay,
Did you sign that?
It's promotion.
Yeah. Did you sign that NDA?
I did.
Okay.
but she
Signed the release,
has
too.
fits of temper, doesn't she?
She does.
She does have a temper.
She yelled at me once. It was my second day.
Yeah.
We were shooting in I think it was Agoura Hills, and I had to carry this couch. I was still a PA at the time, and I had to carry a couch onto the stage. And she walks over and she's like, "You guys need to know. You guys know what you're gonna do with the couch." Before I can even say anything, I looked up, opened my mouth. I was like, "Ah!" And then she's like, "That's not how you speak to a lady. When a lady addresses you, you're supposed to say yes, ma'am, no, ma'am." And she just like yells at me for a good 10 seconds, and I'm just standing there like, "Hi." I had never met her. After that, she's been very nice to me. For a little bit, she knew me as a little Armenian man, but I think now she actually knows my name.
Well, she has also financial problems with. Wasn't there a phony bankruptcy? or something?
There is a court case, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken,
Yeah,
going
well,
on. At
There
the
is a
moment.
court case. I don't know anything about it other than what's in the newspapers.
Yeah, and you know what? That will build viewership. because
Absolutely.
everybody loves that.
As long
drama.
as you pronounce the name correctly,
Mhm.
spell the name correctly, and it doesn't involve animals or children, you're fine.
Yes, absolutely.
So now you got promoted on that show, didn't you?
I did. Just right place, right time. I was a PA for a few weeks, and then I got promoted to a field production coordinator.
Mhm.
What does a field production coordinator do?
It varies from show to show, but on this one, I'm in charge of setup of the studio, tearing down the studio, making sure the trucks are loaded, scheduling and hiring PAs, just all the day, ordering lunch, which is always fun. Basically, the day-to-day operations. Anything that needs to happen at that moment, I take care of.
What do you think caused them to? What do you think they noticed about you? Because anybody listening who's trying to break into the
Well,
business, starting as a PA is a great way to do that. Well, what did you do?
I got on Dance Moms because when I worked on Hell's Kitchen, my coordinator from there, Anthony Shepard, he was working as a production coordinator on Dance Moms, and he called me and says, "Hey, we need someone to work as essentially a second AD." I would have been a PA for one of the ADs, so I went in there. I worked a day for that, but I was still working on other shows, so I wasn't able to do it full time. And then so I just went on as a PA, and then when the position opened up, he said, "I really need somebody that can work well with producers, because our producers, require a lot of things. They want to be taken care of, as every producer wants to be taken care of." And he was like, "I know you've worked as an assistant to an executive producer on your last job, Agent X. It was on TNT, got canceled, but watch it on Netflix." And
Wow.
but anyway, he was like, "Yeah, I'm looking for someone that can take care of the producers." And that was what got me that job. He needed someone who can interact with them, who knows how to talk to above the line and kind of help them throughout their day as much as possible.
Well, we always tell young people interested in getting into entertainment that there are no 50-year-old PAs. That if you are good at what you do and you show up on time and take care of the producers, if that's what
I
you're
can
supposed
attest
to
to
do,
that. Yes. That
you
is
will
very
you
true.
will be
Yes.
promoted because
Yes.
because relationships.
Especially in reality.
Yeah.
Yes. Very much quicker than
Yes.
in scripted.
Michael, let's ask you about Celebrity Apprentice,
Yes,
which, as we know,
please.
is Donald Trump's show, and we are not going to get political here. We just want to know about your experience.
It's nothing but good. This season, I don't know if you're aware, but the show was actually bought up by MGM, So now you could kind of tell in terms of production value and whatever, it's gotten a little bit bigger. And Donald Trump is no longer associated with the show.
Was he on the show when you were doing it?
No, he was not. The person who replaced him is Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh wow!
Oh my goodness!
He is now.
He's
essentially
back.
he's the boss. He's essentially he's taken the place of Donald Trump, where he is the final say so of hiring, firing, on the show, that kind of thing. In terms of the contestants, yes.
And how is that going? He's formidable.
You know what? I got to tell you, he's probably the best or just most genuine, great star that I've ever worked with. He was like the sweetest person that you will ever meet. It's so weird that obviously, yeah, you know him as Conan, as Terminator, you know him as the guy who got pregnant in that one movie, and then he birthed the whatever
Junior,
Danny DeVito in Twins, whatever. And it's just funny. He's that person who you can. It's funny because I have worked with other celebrities in the past, and he's the one that stands out the most, that you can tell that is just grateful to be working. He's grateful to have a career.
Yes,
and just really, really cool.
He has that Germanic work ethic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Totally.
Not afraid of hard work.
No,
not at all.
Not at all. Yeah.
So, can you tell us some stories about the experience?
Yeah. There's some
backstage stories.
What can I say that won't implicate me? Well, okay. So I can't use names because it hasn't aired yet. So I think it airs in the fall, if I'm not mistaken. I think in August or something.
First of all, you have to talk about what a great show it is.
It is.
And make sure you give the name 7 times during the course of your
absolutely
speech today.
Celebrity Apprentice that I worked on this recently, season 8 of Celebrity Apprentice, was one of the most fun experiences that I had on a show. The people that worked there were just phenomenal workers, but also just fun to be around. Like you could just tell that they had a good time, being on the show. And of course, there's tons of backbiting and all kinds of crazy stuff with the not with Arnold, but with the contestants that were on the show. I can't name names because I don't know if I can name the contestants, but I won't name the scenarios.
Okay.
A couple of them were Carson. Like one of them was Carson from like Queer Eye, as a reality star. Carson Kressley. Boy George. Oh God, what else? What was her name? One of the housewives. I don't remember what season or what she was from. Yeah, definitely John Lovitz. Let's see here. What else? Oof.
Well, that's cool. That's a
Snooki. Snooki was also kind of an interesting addition to the show. She is 4'11". She is very tiny, a tiny woman, but very sweet nevertheless. Portia Williams, who, if I'm not mistaken, was Love and Basketball or Love and Hip Hop.
Real Housewives.
Real Housewives. I'm sorry. Real Housewives. She's a reality star as well. Just a bunch of people. And so.
And just tell us, for people who haven't seen it, what is the setup of the show?
It's pretty simple. So it's just like any other reality show where they set up a task for these people. They'll be on 2 teams, like Team A, Team B. They'll split them up into men and women's teams, and then they'll give them a task. And that task is meant to raise money for like a charity of their choosing, whatever the charity is. And then whoever wins or whoever raises the most money wins that task. So that's kind of more or less how it is. And of course the tasks can vary from like something simple as like selling candy, in a candy store and trying to get the most candy that you sold, or going down to like Venice Beach or something and just interacting with people so they can get a viral video for like a certain company. Because a lot of times what will happen is it's like promotion for a particular company. So a company will come in and say, can you make us this for like a promotion, or like this commercial, or like do this for us? And then so in turn, of course, the company gets promotion, and then they in turn get a task for what to do.
And the episodes I've seen, it just requires the contestants to be resourceful, to be able to be team players.
Totally.
And to be creative. And also, like in the movie business, a producer always has to have a plan B, a plan C, to always have a plan B or a plan C to go to if something falls through. And I was just thinking, what I was reminded of, Calvin Coolidge, President Coolidge said, the business of America is business.
Yep.
And this is focused on doing business and raising money, making money.
Right.
And seeing how resourceful these people can be.
And then, of course, the prize is roughly, I think, $250,000.
And does Arnold say you're fired? Or does
that was the best. That was the best. I think I can say this because I mean he was very adamant about this. The best thing about that show, the best moment that I had on that show, I'm sorry, was I don't know if it was captured on film. That's the thing. But if no, it was being filmed, and he wanted to say his catchphrases instead of saying "you're fired." Like he wanted to say. Like he wanted to say, you're terminated.
You want to be back.
Hasta la vista, you won't be back. You're terminated. All of the like he wanted to say those things, and I think he did in some instances get to say some of that stuff. But it was that's what was so great about him is that he owned that. He owned that persona. He didn't like shy away from the fact that made him famous. That was just really endearing. To see that.
One thing about him I know is that he has a lot of gratitude.
Yes.
For what this country has enabled him to do, for his success.
And it's obvious. It's very when you speak to him one-on-one, it's obvious that he has that. Total humility about all of that.
So
now I know that both of you are in reality programming kind of by accident. In fact, most of show business careers tend to be a lot of accidents that happen to fall in a very fortuitous way.
Yes.
What are each of your overall ambitions? Maybe it is to be a reality producer, become a showrunner, and go off that way. But is there something else that you're both interested in doing?
My goal is scripted development, and honestly, if I had my way, I'd be running MGM. But my goal is scripted development.
We're not laughing at. We're not laughing at.
No.
Same goal.
So when are you going to get together with one of the people that used to be at Fremantle, who is now one of their head corporate counsels? He happens to live fairly close to Michael.
I'm available when they are.
And what about you, Michael?
Similar but different. I do want to be in development, but as a creative, I want to eventually, hopefully at some point, become a writer for either a show or just features on my own.
And both of you are writing. You're currently working on projects.
I'm in the very early stages of starting something.
Correct. Yes.
Well, I want to ask, and I want to ask Dan this too, because I have an idea for a reality show if I were producing one. And I'll start because I want to ask if you could have your own reality show, something you're interested in, you'd like to see. Well, let me back up before I do that. The first reality show was in the early 70s, was a documentary that was not scripted at all, called An American Family. About
I'm going to
it
play
was
a history lesson on.
There was some suggestions from the producer, but a great deal of it was in the moment.
American Family was unique, and it set a precedent for how things would be done in the future, including what not to do, because they realized that by having that it broke that family up.
Yes, it did. This was the Loud family that lived in Santa Barbara, a husband and wife who had a troubled marriage, 5 teenage children, Pat Loud and her husband, and several of her. Lance Loud was the most famous of their kids. He was gay, and unfortunately he died of AIDS. But from what I gather, and then they did that movie with Gandolfini as the producer, behind the scenes.
There always is, because it's not natural to have a camera follow you around, and you're going to be playing to it. It's inhuman to expect someone to have the camera completely disappear. But what was a little bit interesting about that particular period was that was a PBS show, and PBS was starting to do a lot of these follow people around shows. It wasn't only that one; they did another one called Joan. Watch her die on camera. So how far some of these shows were going, to the point where PBS pulled back.
That's probably
and then it went to commercial TV, where of course it's all open. The actual
and what was that?
It was called Night Court. I know. No, it had nothing to do with the TV show.
Oh yes,
it planted a camera in the night court, and you would watch the defendants come in.
Oh my goodness.
And it was, for the early days of KTLA TV, must-see TV.
Oh my.
And
was it ever censored or edited? Because I imagine they're gonna swear.
Was it live or?
It was live.
It was live.
It was a live show.
And it was local. It was local.
It was KTLA.
That must have been amazing.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Well, the thing about An American Family was whatever was going on behind the scenes, there were many, many unscripted moments, and you watched the family fall apart because they got divorced.
I believe they not only got divorced, but down the road, they were blaming the fact that they were on TV for the divorce, for the family falling apart the way it did,
Yeah.
for the trauma that it had. On the other hand, because their son had come out on TV, that was actually the first salvo for television becoming very pro-gay characters from an early period, because that led to the TV movie One Certain Summer, which was Hal Holbrook.
Right.
So
I remember that.
it's funny how inadvertently shows sometimes create a situation.
Here's the reality show that I would like to produce or see.
Bring it.
It would be, and this would be tricky, and I don't know if you could even do it, but an Orthodox Jewish family, like a Hasidic family, because there are Orthodox and then there are Hasidic. My late grandparents were Orthodox, but they were not Hasidic. They didn't drive, they kept kosher. They didn't drive on Saturday, etc. But they didn't, they weren't ultra Orthodox.
Right.
I would like to have a reality show about an ultra Orthodox Hasidic family in Brooklyn, with a papa and a mama, and then their children and getting married and the whole deal, because there are a lot of misconceptions, and there are also those who want to be out in the world and whatever conflict there is. I don't know how willing an Orthodox family would be willing, but the Amish are letting the cameras in. That's what I would like to see, and I would like to produce as honoring my own heritage and also for my own edification.
Of course.
And how about you, Dan?
That's PBS. And that would be something where you could do it. It's in its own way kind of a vamp on a show that was on the air, and I hope I get the name right on this, Wife Swap.
Yes.
Where
Ooh,
you would swap the wife from very different families and see how they coped with the very, very different environment. But I can see that as being a PBS show where you would follow them, see how their lives are. Although I think what would probably happen with it is that you would take a show like that and every week follow a different ethnic family or family from a different socioeconomic position. For example, you might follow an Hasidic family that's poor, then an Hasidic family that's more wealthy. And in the case of Asians, you might have one where you do one like in Hawaii, where you have the Asians who are still scandalized that one of their kids married someone from Okinawa, versus one where their whole family is now a bunch of zebras.
Well, I think that's an idea for me. I would want to do a whole season focusing on one family so that an audience can start having favorite characters and start investing in outcomes. And actually, I think for me, it would be like 13 episodes about this family. And then the next season, we would do another one. But my question to you, Dan Watanabe, is what reality show would you like to produce?
There were a bunch that while I was at Fremantle, I was developing reality shows. So there were a ton that we were coming up with.
Were you invested in them personally?
A couple of them, yes.
Okay, tell us.
Okay, one of them was a show called Covered Wagon. And what it was, now this was before 1890s House, so that was a while back. And what we had proposed was to do a show where you put people on a wagon train, and they actually have to go across country on a wagon train and go through the way,
like Oregon Trail,
like the Oregon Trail,
dysentery,
or something like that.
You just died. Okay.
Yes, and have them actually do that. Now, of course, you'd have the crew there to make sure that you didn't get dysentery or any of that other stuff. But you would still have all of the struggles that you would have going through that. Now, when we were starting to talk to other people, here's the truth. The truth is that everyone in Hollywood, there's sometimes something where it just happens to be in the air. And again, this was pre-1890s House, which was kind of the for this type of show. There were so many other production companies that were pitching the exact same idea. And they were pitching wild variations. Like my favorite variation that actually got pitched to Fremantle was Upside Down House, where the house was literally upside down. and that meant that the toilets were upside down too. It was
Were they high when they were pitching this? or-
No,
Maybe.
I mean, you should see. I mean, as some of my students know, often within a class, I will show some of the embarrassing stuff I've been involved with. And
Well, my question to you is today.
Yeah.
If you were to produce a reality show, what would you like to produce?
I would love to do something like Covered Wagon, where you put people into a situation that is familiar from movies and other
And you
literature.
impose severe limitations.
Yes, so, and it doesn't even have to be something as remote as Covered Wagon. It can be 1940s house. What was it like to be living in the 1940s? What was it like to be living in the era when you still had ice boxes?
Yes,
Wow.
that's fascinating.
Well,
Let's ask our guest. Let's ask. We should talk. We should take a meeting about that. Michael, what kind of reality show would you like to
Oh,
see?
wow. If I was going to continue in reality, I think I actually thought about this while I was on Celebrity. I don't know if this has been done, and you guys can correct me if it has been done or if it's already out there. But something in the vein of like your Fear Factor, where or kind of a similar context, but from an action movie kind of standpoint. So you take people who want to be quote unquote stuntmen or stunt women, doesn't matter. I mean, it could be both. I would include both, obviously. And you make it like a competition where you perform tasks and stunts, whatever that is, rolling a car in a cage, whatever it is, doing a fight scene, whatever. And then whoever wins at the end of said competition gets the chance or a crack at a movie for whatever film they would be associated with that. So,
That's interesting. Isn't that what American Ninja, or is American Ninja kind of like way out there?
No, it's not way out there. It's similar, but it's not specifically geared towards
Right.
a movie. Like I would actually tie in a movie that's in production to that. So
like they would be duplicating some of the stunts.
Yeah, so like obviously it'd be kind of like your what's the word I'm looking for? Not interview, but your audition for said movie.
That is
and then you complete it. You do whoever does the best and whoever wins. Well, you get the stunt woman or man spot.
Great cross promotion.
Yeah, it's a great cross promotion, but also I know for a fact it is one of the most difficult. I think it's even more difficult than writing to break into in terms of stunt work or stunt whatever, because they're so close knit. So there's so few of them. And it's very fraternity.
And what's interesting, I was talking to someone at this high school I was doing some work at the other day, and one of the young men said, "Well, I want to be a stuntman." He said, "I'm fearless." I said, "Then you can't be a stuntman.
Yeah.
You have to have the healthy fear." Because that's what leads a supervisor, a stunt supervisor, stunt coordinator.
Safety first.
There's always fear
Safety
of what
first.
could go wrong. Safety. This is why it
Safety
takes so
first.
long to set up certain stunts and all of that.
Exactly.
You can't be fearless because that's
Exactly.
foolish.
I don't remember if it has gone on the air, but again, during the time I was all the way from the time I was an All-American, they were trying to do a show about stuntmen.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually had a bunch of real stuntmen come and pitch to us. The number one challenge of doing those shows is liability.
Yep.
Yes,
I know that.
And
That's why I know
The
it'd be a
insurance
challenge.
would be
I know
over.
that.
Insurance rates would be, astronomical.
That's why I quoted something like Fear Factor. So I'd have to follow something like, because I would imagine they had some similar liability issues, but with normal people. So hopefully there was something to that precedent is already there. So I was hoping that you could, if I was to do it, that's what I would kind of follow along.
It's a challenge.
Yeah.
The trick with any reality show, as you're putting it together, is you're always going to want to think not only in terms of who your audience is, because that's a big plus, but something like Fear Factor was one of those shows that was a huge hit that did not benefit the network. So the network did not like it. And that's because it was advertiser unfriendly.
Right.
If you're going to have someone eat a worm, you're not going to want to advertise any food in the commercial slots that go around it.
Gummy worms? No?
Yes.
That's just a suggestion.
But conversely, that's why a show like Bachelor was so huge, because it was positive across all demographics.
Yep.
And it had wish fulfillment. It was a feel-good show. And
women loved it.
Women and men loved it.
Yes. Big
And
demographic.
what about you, Armin?
Uh,
If you ruled the reality world, what show would you be producing?
I was thinking about this. I don't know. I guess I kind of would do a little road trip show where you just take two people from LA or whatever, you throw them into a completely opposite situation, like you throw them into the country. You just put a few GoPros in the cars and just have them drive from point A to point B, and then it would just be a different fish out of water thing every episode. But I guess
That's kind of like Idiot Abroad, but here in America.
yeah,
Okay.
but not with like
Similar.
a comedian, not with anything. You just like literally
Oh,
just
just
two
two
random
people.
people,
Okay.
throw them in a van, and just drive from Orlando to DC.
And give them a challenge,
Yeah.
give them tasks
Yeah.
so they have to cooperate, and then you have the different personalities and different points of view, and so there's the drama.
Of course.
Well, that's
good.
really
Good.
that's interesting.
A
It's cheap.
variation of that might also be family road trip,
Family.
where you put an extended family on a road trip in a van,
Oh, that'd be
where
cool.
they are probably going to get into
Your
fights.
in-laws.
That's right. Your in-laws are going to be with you, and you get to follow them as they go
Yes,
through their
there is a
paces.
show about these disparate people who come together about traveling abroad.
Mhm.
I don't know. It's
there's I don't know if it's
called.
Is it Idiot Abroad? Idiot Abroad is similar to that. I don't know if that's the one you're talking about.
I mean, you could always do one where you just set up a bunch of cameras inside of a hostel somewhere. That'd be fun to watch.
Oh, God.
No.
No.
You have to be very careful, because
Don't.
while sometimes hostels, especially the ones that cater to international travelers, because the whole hosteling thing is huge in Europe and Japan. When I was living in Japan, I worked for a travel agent for a while that did trips through hostels. But there's a lot of hostels that are not safe and
imagine.
are
Yeah.
kind of dens of iniquity. Let's put it that way. That the horror movie is the horror movie for a reason.
Actually, I think I just came up with something, actually a combination of what you said and what Armin said, where it's the family road trip, but it's two families. And it's the families of a bride and groom that are going to get married. And it's the road trip to get to the wedding.
Oh, that's awesome.
The in-laws.
But with the in-laws. However, this is
Destination. It's called a destination
yes,
wedding.
and this is the prize, if you will, is if they survive, if they make it from New York or wherever they're starting to LA or wherever the wedding's going to be, the wedding gets paid for. But they have to survive. They have to make it. They have to.
And they have specific tasks
And they have specific
along
tasks,
the way.
yeah,
And
same
then,
thing, yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I do want to recommend a scripted show called Unreal,
That
which is brilliantly written and acted. That's produced and written by a woman who worked on The Bachelor, and it is about the world of a show
Sarah
like The
Kirchner
Bachelor
Shapiro.
with the contestants and it's of course it's brilliantly written and
Mhm.
brilliantly executed, and I can highly recommend it.
I worked on it a little bit.
Armin has a connection with that show.
It's a good show.
My boss from Agent X, Peter O'Fallon, is one of the supervising producers on Real. He directed the pilot, the first episode and the last episode, and they're currently shooting right now in Vancouver.
Mhm.
Would have been working on it if it was in LA.
For
But-
those who are interested in and concerned about the role of women in show business creatively, I think TV has really opened up with Shonda Rhimes, but also a show like Unreal and a show, Girlfriend's Guide to Divorce, which is written and conceived by a woman, and also Younger, which is also on TV Land, which is a terrific show. All of these shows are brilliantly written.
I kind of feel like, I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe you can correct me, but Cody Diablo, is that her name?
Yeah,
I feel like she kind of opened that up a little bit
yeah.
in recent years.
Actually, it's women on TV in terms of the writing end have been strong forever.
Yeah.
You had the Whit Thomas Harris. You had you had Susan Harris when she was
Right,
doing soap back in the
absolutely.
70s.
And The Good Wife is a married couple,
Right.
the Kings, I think TV is like wide open now, where the writer is king now.
Yeah.
The showrunner,
Thank
writer
God.
is king. Yeah, really.
For me, that's thank God.
Really. Enough when I say there's so much to watch. If I didn't sleep, I could see everything. That's my mantra these days, Interesting.
So because the two of you have worked on both scripted and unscripted, what do you find to be the key differences in terms of the productions?
Ooh.
It all depends on the show.
Mhm.
Hell's Kitchen ran really well. It was a big show. It was on a stage. Same thing with Food Network Star. It was pretty scripted. Like you had your scenes that you needed to shoot. Once your scene was rolling, it was whatever the cast happened to do, whatever the judges are saying. But from this time, from 1 to 3, we're shooting, judging. That was our scene. So those ran a lot like a scripted show. So if you worked a stage show, it was familiar. Dance Moms is it's a little different. You follow on the cast. So it's anything goes at any time. So we're shooting for 5-6 hours straight sometimes, and we hope that something happens. And we have specific days where like it's a rehearsal day, and then we have a competition day. But it's kind of whatever happens in those 5-6 hours that we're shooting.
What it sounds like with that is there's a lot of work done in the editing room to
Yeah.
pull out what's
Yep.
dramatic, to pull out the
Yep.
conflict.
On something like Dance Moms, it's editing room. It's editing room that is the other half of the
Right.
that makes the show. On something like Hell's Kitchen, it's yes, the editing room, but it's also it's not written, but you know exactly
Yeah.
what's happening.
Yeah, it's a little more regimented.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I understand.
Yep. No, I would agree. I would say how they're similar, where they kind of coincide, is just like a production. It depending on how big, how much money. If it's a decent sized production, decent crew, it's going to run like a machine, and you just every day is kind of like just boom, 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 ABC, get your stuff done, and that kind of thing.
I want to ask Michael something, because
Yeah.
your background is in biochem,
Yes.
which is another world, but of course you
completely
you
different.
bring the knowledge,
Yes.
but you never should know when it's going to show up in the script or when
Yes.
someone's going to need information.
Yes.
And also you are former military.
Yes.
You're an Army veteran.
Yeah.
And how has being in those two worlds prepared you for life in Hollywood?
Wow.
And how have they benefited you?
Yeah, no, it has been a benefit. It's I didn't, I guess, fully appreciate this, or I didn't even fully understand this, because when you're in it, or it's a part of you, you're not aware of how you act and whatever, that kind of thing, or you're how you're perceived by the world, I guess. But the just, at least military wise, the sheer discipline and like kind of work ethic and that sort of that sort of stuff. It's until you're faced with a team that isn't regimented, isn't disciplined, much younger people, and you can kind of tell where that sort of comes from. In terms of biochem, though, it's a completely different world. It's night and day. One is obviously with entertainment, it's a very creative driven industry, whereas biochem is very much similar in the military perspective, where it's very regimented. It's very rational, logical. It's it's A, B, and C because of C, D, and E, whatever. So there's not a lot of room. That's actually what was so frustrating about it, and why I left, is because there's very little, if no room for creativity. I don't mind backing up something with obviously evidence and numbers and statistics. Like, you should be able to do that in any argument in your life and whatever. But it's when there's no room for creative licensing in what you're doing, it's kind of sucks.
Yeah.
It's kind of boring and just tedious. And so, yeah.
And from my own experience in working in the business world, and I've worked in the business end of the business in payroll and residuals, and I write and I work with writers, that I can pull in. It'll show up in my consulting. It'll show up in my own work. So a varied career is never a bad thing.
Yeah.
And I think that, especially with the military background, you learn to respect the chain of command.
That, yes.
Because time is money in Hollywood,
Yes,
and when you're on a crew,
absolutely.
you have to know who your boss is. You
Yeah.
have to make your. I had a boss who once said to me, "Your only job is to make your boss look good. That's your only job."
That's very true.
And it's
very, very
really helped me in all the jobs I've had.
Yep.
Armin,
Very
how
true.
about you? What do you? I know that you came from the student world.
Mhm.
Have any other jobs or anything else prepared you for show business, or are you finding that your show business experience is helping you in your life?
I mean, I've been in one way or another, whether it's been through a student project or through some little indie project or a short or whatever, have been in film, TV, entertainment since I was like 16, 15. I literally have no other skills. If this doesn't work out for me, it's not good. But
No other marketable skills.
And having wanted to do it for so long, and having started off as a student and then working as a second AC, and even volunteering on other schools' productions, I worked on a few USC shoots where I met some connections there, ended up getting some work out of that. It let me go through my growing pains in terms of what my ego and what I want to do and all that stuff really early. So by the time I graduated high school, I knew I wanted to do entertainment. And originally I thought I wanted to do cameras. And then I got an internship and I realized I wanted development, and I've been wanting to do development since I was 20. So having started early, I went through all my growing pains, and I was able to learn what I'm good at and what I'm not, and when to talk, when to shut up, and when got really good advice along the way. And one of the best pieces of advice I ever got, and this I think is the best piece of advice I can give to anybody. Peter O'Fallon told me this when I was working on Legit. He said, "We're not saving the world, so you might as well have fun."
Mhm.
Which I think was literally the best piece of advice I could ever have gotten, because there's been so many times where I'm working and it'll be a small issue. It won't be that big of a deal, but people will freak out and it'll be just a crisis, and everyone and their mother will be called, and it'll turn into this big thing. And I'm just like, guys, who cares? Let's just move on. Like,
stress management.
move the table and let's
Yes.
go. Like,
Yeah, really.
super-
And all of
super
us in
important.
this room, our producers, our guests, Dan and myself, we worked on a short film together.
Mhm.
And while it was very hard work, and everybody really, worked extremely hard in making this film, we had a lot of fun too. And it brought us all, actually, it formed a bond for all of us. It's kind of interesting that when you work together on something creative, there is a bond that's formed that can't be
Yes.
broken. It's hard to break.
Yes,
Interesting.
absolutely.
Interestingly enough. And I know that you, Armin, are very interested in distribution. I know your theories about distribution. You're very passionate about
I
that.
am.
I've heard you speak about what you think is wrong in distribution, and perhaps you and Dan can talk a bit
I was
about that.
I was actually reading this article today. What was that religious movie that just came out?
The Messiah, the Young Messiah?
No. It
The
was
other one?
it was some other religious movie that just came out. It was a smaller one.
The Jennifer Garner.
Yes,
Was
yes,
Miracles,
that
the miracle
Yeah.
movie. Whatever.
Miracles Are Real or
Yeah,
something.
she falls out of a tree and gets
Something like
cured.
that.
Yeah.
And I was reading mainly about my God, what's that? The new Divergent movie.
Insurgent.
Insurgent. Yeah.
that it? Yeah,
like
that's the
the
name.
latest version that came out, I was saying it bombed at the box office.
No.
Shocker.
Mm.
And it was talking about how Zootopia's third week in a row is still making a ton of money.
Yeah.
It's gross,
It's crazy.
good, like 300
It's
million, I
crazy.
think, or what the numbers are. And I was looking at this religious movie, and it's doing like 30 million opening weekend or whatever.
Mhm.
I'm looking at it going, why in God's name can't you make a bunch of those movies, and rather than distributing it widely in 3,000 theaters, distribute it in states and cities and places where people like religious movies,
Like
You would-
red states.
like red states or the flyover states. You would make a lot of money. People in LA aren't going to watch it, but someone in Tennessee will probably watch it. So Miracles Are from Heaven. That's what it was called.
Mhm.
But why not make movies for
Well, what's the,
specific people?
This is an area that actually bothers me a lot, because when I first got into show business, the important rule was knowing what was PR and therefore not to be believed. You would say it, but you would know it's not true. And now, where instead of believing their research, you have studio execs deciding what the truth is, and the facts be damned. So one of the big issues is that, just like Seventh Heaven was always the WB Network's number one show, and the WB Network did its best to cover that up because they were embarrassed by it. That just like Touched by an Angel, you had CBS constantly moving the show because they wanted it to fail, and it kept building nights, and they kept trying to kill it. That you have people in Hollywood who unfortunately are living in their egos to such a degree that they don't care if it costs them money, as long as their values are enhanced.
I mean, it's not even.
well, they're driven by their secular beliefs
I mean, it's
and
not
their
even-
anti-religious bias.
It's not even just religious movies. Where you look at Tyler Perry, he makes movies for African Americans. There's no denying that. It's not a racist comment. That's just what he does. And they work really well because they go really well towards that demographic. There are stories they want to see. Why not make movies geared towards Hispanics and geared towards African Americans, geared towards religious
Because
people?
it's not cool. This is a huge problem that was beginning when I was in the industry, but it's gotten worse.
I mean, I'm Armenian. If you make a movie that has a remotely Armenian storyline, Armenians will go watch it. I mean, Sideways, like, I thought it was really cool. They had a little bit of an Armenian storyline, but it helps.
Why don't you write the next My Big Fat Armenian Wedding?
Right. Now, My Big Fat Greek Wedding, nobody wanted to make it till Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson came along.
No one wanted to make it.
And it that was word of mouth too. But didn't they show it to like they started with the Greek community?
They knew how to platform it. And this is an area, again, where I don't understand why models that had been working for decades all of a sudden became, oh, that's not the way things are done anymore. And now bad business models are not only encouraged, but to the exclusion of evidence. You see the return on investment on a lot of big movies, which admittedly are easier to sell because Europeans don't buy smaller films. It doesn't matter. You can make a nice return on investment on small budgets.
I'm going to be very interested to see how My Big Fat Greek Wedding 2 does. I think it's going to really do well because people remember and are fond of the first one.
My Big Fat Greek Wedding is really good because, I mean, as an Armenian, but this applies to Persians or
Other ethnic groups.
any ethnicity really. If you just change every time they say Greek and make it Armenian, it works just the same. It can work with Italians. It can work with
It
French,
actually
maybe
works
not.
with My Big Fat Japanese Wedding too.
Sure. Well, because it's particular and it's universal. And we all, we all have a family. We've all either been in a wedding or gone to a wedding, and we all have crazy families.
And this is where Netflix, I think, is really smart because when they came out with House of Cards, they looked at their data and said Kevin Spacey's really popular. Our people like political shows a lot, and who was the director of it?
Fincher.
Yeah, they really like David Fincher. Let's have a show with the three of them together. It was a package, but it worked really well, and the audiences came towards it. If people like it, give it to them. And I think audiences are hungry for content.
Yeah.
Audiences
content.
have a really bad habit of liking things that are good. And this is something that has always bothered executives in entertainment who really want audiences to do what they're told to do. Oh, you should go see this movie because it has X number of explosions. Because that idea that you can create a hit just by quantifying something, whether it's musical numbers, biblical scenes, explosions, CGI effects, that's easier than actually saying, let's just try to make a good movie, or let's just try to do a good TV show.
That's what I like about TV. I think they finally pulled their head out of their butts and are expanding their programming, like with the live musicals. I mean, there's a Tyler Perry one coming out. Tyler Perry's was a Passion.
And the Grease one surprised
It airs
everybody.
tonight.
Grease was not only highly rated, it was watched by so millions of people, but it got great reviews.
It's on Fox.
Yes.
I mean, I want to see movies of the week again,
Yes.
or movies of the month or something.
Well,
Just
movies of the week
get people used to watching.
Movies of the week were a huge business. And what's sad about them is that this was one of the first examples where you saw financial decisions destroy a genre. And what happened there was that movies of the week were always shot in LA. And and every network had a movie of the week every week.
Right.
What happened was they started running away to Canada. And even though this sounds ridiculous, the very fact that you have all of them with the same extras, because there's a lot of Canadian actors who cannot speak American English. You were trying to double Canadian light for United States light for the exteriors, or you were having to change the street signs, and you were having to, it was just subtly different enough to where your average viewer who was watching it said no.
And they also became more pablum-y. The early years of the movies of the week, they did some really interesting dramas.
Yeah, but One of My Wives is missing is hardly high literature, but it was energetic.
But they also tackled interesting subjects like alcoholism.
Yes.
And child abuse and all of that. And they had some very serious writers. The interesting thing mentioning House of Cards is there were a number. What's happened with it used to be that if you were in the movies, you never did TV. Your agent wouldn't let you, as a director, as a writer, there was this dividing line. And what has happened in recent years now, Fincher, who's a movie director, and there have been a number of other movie directors and writers who've come on to write episodes of House of Cards and direct them. It's become a badge of honor to Breaking Bad and many other fine TV dramas have movie people working on them.
I think they have to, because I think the agency world and Wall Street for a long time convinced Hollywood it's not creativity, it's who's starring in it, or
Absolutely,
or how
that's
big
what
the
happened.
budget is. So they were. I mean, when I was on Media Talent Group, I was an intern there, and I read a few scripts. I was doing coverage on scripts, and I read about 40 scripts. There was 5 that were really, really good. I read them, and I was like, I love these scripts. I would love to see them made. I don't know why they haven't been made. Other than the fact that, it's it's not a big enough budget, or it doesn't have this person attached to it. And I can see why a creative person would be like, well, TV's willing to do my thing. I'll go there.
Absolutely. And the thing about Breaking Bad, nobody tuned into that because, oh, I love Bryan Cranston, I love Aaron Paul. It was an intriguing idea. It was an intriguing concept, beautifully executed.
I didn't get into it until season 3, but it
You
was
did-
word of mouth that got me into it. I was like, oh, yeah,
Season
I'll
2,
check
yeah.
it out. And I was like,
Yeah,
this is
season
great.
2.
Well, talking about flyover country, Breaking Bad fits perfectly in that because Breaking Bad is a biblical epic. It's
Mhm.
even though it's in a weird realm, it's a prodigal son type story.
Mm.
At the end, he does the moral thing.
Mhm.
And the fact that he did that was one of the reasons why it played across the country. It played to all different audiences.
Mhm.
And that's something that, again, a lot of the image makers, a lot of the people who are supposedly the content creators in the cool clique, who would never live in the 818, they would rather die than live in the valley, don't have a connection with who their audience is anymore. And the problem is that even faced with the evidence, until they get fired, they don't want to make a change.
Well, what's really interesting about House of Cards and Breaking Bad is their showrunner, creators, head writers, Vince Gilligan and Bo Willimon from House of Cards, are Southern boys who
Yep.
remain true to their roots. They're not of Hollywood. And also, Breaking Bad was Shakespearean too.
Yes.
Absolutely. Because in the end, if you haven't seen it, spoiler, it's too late. When he says, he said, yes, I started doing it to provide for my family after my death, but in that scene in the kitchen where he says to his wife, I loved it. That is so Shakespearean. That is so powerful. So against what we were expecting to hear. Like in any good drama, it was filled with surprises.
It's weird what they're doing in movies. Like nobody wants to come out with content. I'm getting burnt out on the superhero movies. As much as I love Spider-Man and Batman, I grew up on them watching them. It's like, okay, I get it.
Well, regarding Insurgent, I just read that this may be a super dramatic, but there was a headline saying it may usher in the death toll for the dystopian young adult movies.
I'm glad because
hope so.
after Hunger Games, and I think there was one before Hunger Games.
Oh my God, what is that other one?
Not Scorch
With the
Trials. There was
kid.
another big one, big young adult.
Yeah,
Twilight.
yeah. No, Twilight.
After those was it feels like every young adult thing is trying to be another Hunger Games, trying to be another copy, as opposed to being another movie.
Yeah.
When Deadpool came out, everyone's like, "Oh, it's an R-rated superhero movie that cusses. We have to make more of those." Like, no, Deadpool's good because it's Deadpool.
Mm-hmm.
Your
Well, no,
Superman will be good because it should be good, not
Yeah.
because it's trying to be whatever.
Starts with the writing.
It's all about the writing. It's all
Mhm.
about the creativity.
Mhm.
As a final question, what have you learned from working in reality that you feel can help you in your scripted storytelling?
You can literally take a story in any direction if you really think it through and just plant the right seeds. And it's not necessarily writing it yourself. Is if you're having a meeting with somebody and you're trying to get them to change a script so it's along the lines of what you want. It's rather than telling somebody you suggested. You're like, it might be interesting if this character was a female.
Mm.
I don't know. Let's think about it. And then hopefully, it blossoms into Angelina Jolie being in Salt because that was originally a male character. But
Well, it's the two big words in a story conference. What if?
Mhm.
it's learning patience and just hopefully things go your way. And if they don't, you kind of readjust and make it
work.
either through post or whatever. Just make it happen.
Michael?
I've actually learned a lot about writing. It's for me, it's get to that right now. For me, it's kind of like that scene in Clash of the only way I can picture it is that scene in Clash of Titans where Perseus is instead of looking directly at Medusa, does the little mirror trick and then knows where she is so he doesn't get turned to stone. I think storytelling or writing specifically is kind of like that, where if you try to attack it directly, if you try to head on, you're going to get turned to stone. But if you kind of just peek around the corner and kind of allow it to come to you and just let it, flow naturally, so to speak, I think you can kind of, I think you get some really great content. You get some really great story. So
Terrific.
Well, Michael and Armin, thank you so much for being our guests today.
That was fun.
And remember to follow us on Twitter with the handle @Dan and Saran.
Thank you, Dan Watanabe.
Thank you, Saran Fox. Thank you, Michael Gonzalez.
thank you for having me.
Thank you, Armin.
Thanks, everybody.
See you next week.
Thank you so
Next
very
week.
much.